Is Carson Beck right? I just listened to a clip of him. I was on social media and I saw a clip of him, the former Georgia quarterback. I know a lot of you are done with him, but stick with me. I want to talk about what he was talking about because I'm curious if it will affect Georgia. I'm curious if it did affect Georgia the last few seasons. It's interesting. He talked about what it was like to be a younger player on championship teams. Obviously, in 2021 and 2022, he is a backup. He's a third string quarterback, right? On those national championship teams. In 23, he becomes the starter. He talked about how it's completely different, and he thinks that where players lack in success, where it becomes too much, is when they have to make the jump to, okay, I'm the guy now. Now I'm the one that has to go out there and make the plays. It takes an extra level of work, is essentially what he was talking about. And I'm curious as if, does that have a little bit to do with the 23 and the 24 football teams, the last two for Georgia that obviously didn't win national championships? Now, newsflash, the same team's not going to win the national championship every single year, right? Expecting Georgia to just win year in and year out is it's dumb, right? Winning back-to-back is really hard. I do think that Georgia will win another championship soon. I don't know how soon, but I do think in the next few years Georgia's that good. But I think that what Carson was talking about was kind of interesting. You wonder if this is going to affect Gunner. You wonder if this is going to affect other young guys that are getting their turn for the first time. And look, the truth of the matter is, with this Georgia football team, is it's going through a ton of transition. I'll go through all of this over the next few minutes. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. We're not done talking about Carson Beck. I know that some people may have flipped it off after I even brought his name up, and maybe the headline itself just rubbed them the wrong way. But I think it's interesting what he was going into, and the reason he's talking about it is because that's his own experience. Being a reserve during championship seasons, it's different when you have to get out there and do it yourself. I thought that was very apparent. Now, let me give you kind of my thoughts heading into the 2023 season. The hype all summer, all off season is, oh, Georgia, and from the Georgia fan base, and kind of a cautiously optimistic expectation is the way I'm going to phrase it, was that Georgia was going to three-peat, or at least there was a very, very good chance that they were going to. Yes, there was a very good chance they were going to. I think that was true, or at least they had a real chance. But me heading into it was, this is really tough. They lost a lot. You think about from that 2022 team, guys like Jalen Carter not being there, just Keely Ringo leaving, just guys that were impact players. I'm trying to go back. Christopher Smith, a couple of offensive linemen, Kenny McIntosh, right? There was a ton of people that left, and there's a lot of transition. And they dealt with that in 21 to 22. It's hard to deal with that. Heading into 23, you thought, hey, Carson Beck can be really good. And he was really good in 2023. But what you notice when you go back to September of 2023 and they're playing UT Martin and they're playing, I think it was Arkansas State or someone like that, and they're getting kind of these warm-up games before they head into SEC play, before they have to head to Auburn for what I believe was the first road SEC game of that season. Sometimes these get jumbled up. I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's how 23 went down. It took a few games for them to get going. It took time against UT Martin for Carson Beck and that offense to look comfortable. And there were times later on in the season where they couldn't handle it. They barely handled going to Auburn and pulling that game off. A team that Georgia was significantly better than, they had to claw their way out of that. Now that happens, but you wondered, hey, does that mean they'll be able to claw their way out of other situations later in the season? That's what you saw with the 2022 team when it played Missouri, when it had a weird game against Kent State. So then, later on in 2023, they go to the SEC Championship, and they just were not ready for that moment. Right? They lost that football game. And Jalen Milroe runs around and makes things really difficult for Georgia. And Georgia's offense did not play well, especially in the first half of that football game. So what Carson was talking about was, he goes, Stetson's not going to come and save you in the fourth quarter. That's like kind of what he had to tell himself. It makes me wonder if this coming Georgia team that's undergoing a lot of transition, is coming off of an SEC championship and what an SEC championship season, and also a season that many view as disappointing. It makes me wonder, is Gunner ready for that? Is he ready to be the guy? Is he going to be someone that struggles with the idea of, oh my goodness, it's my turn? He doesn't really strike me as someone to where that would bother him, but he is human at the end of the day, and we all have things that we are worried about. We all have things that are on the back of our mind that weigh us down. That's just natural. Is this going to be difficult for Nate Frazier if he does end up being a workhorse running back, which I don't think is going to happen? If you're Dylan Bell, can you shake off what I would view as a regression in terms of his play? Obviously, the numbers don't necessarily say that, but I would view it as a regression in terms of the eye test and the impact that he made. If you are Georgia's offensive line, can you step up and play better than All-Americans like Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild did a season ago? If you're Georgia's defense, can you can you step in and be ready for the moment when, look, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, Dan Jackson, Chaz Chambliss, Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Smile Munden, I'm naming all those guys who just left. I think I said Malachi Starks, Mykel Williams. They're all national champions. And they were all contributors to national championship football teams. And they're multiple-time SEC champions. Now it's your turn, 5-star Jordan Hall. It's your turn. I can't believe I just blanked. It's your turn, 5-star Isaiah Gibson, if you're a true freshman, right, who might be getting playing time. It's your turn to be the leader, KJ Bolden, and take on that role that Malachi Starks had the last couple of years. To me, what Beck was talking about is very interesting because it makes you wonder, hey, in 2023, a lot of people felt that team was more than good enough to win the national championship. It was the number one team in the country for a good stretch of the season, and they headed into the SEC championship, the number one team in the country, right? Am I mistaken? That's how it went down, didn't it? They lose that game by what ends up being, a touchdown, a field goal, roughly, and they miss out on their chance. Now, look, in what was a loaded top 4, top 6 season, you had to get that thing done. You had to get it done at the end of the year, and they did. They just lost on the wrong day. If Georgia loses in November and then wins the SEC championship, then they go to the playoffs. So Georgia, in a way, you can argue, kind of got screwed over a little bit, kind of got the short end of the stick, and it didn't work out. But you wonder, hey, does that team win the SEC championship game, a really tough game, if that's not a factor? Now, this is not me making an accusation that what Carson's saying directly applies to Georgia this in 2023 and in turn in 2024 when you lose Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. What happens? Talented Georgia pass catchers don't get it done. Now, they're not near as good, and their draft position kind of tells you that this past draft, seeing Aaron Smith in the 4th round and Dominic Lovett in the 7th round versus first-rounder Brock and near first-rounder Ladd in terms of pass catchers. But part of it is, when it's your turn, are you ready to do it? And that'll be a question for this Georgia football team in 2025 as well. What do you think about what Carson had to say? I know that some of y'all are done with him, but I'm just curious, and I thought it was an interesting conversation.